Hey there, Swisher International. Dominic here. Look forward to seeing you guys again on this little video. I'm going to make this video short because this is really a review. What we're going to do starting next week is we're going to jump into the training manual itself. I hope that you take a chance and go through it. We talked about building better relationships in the manual. We talked about negotiating skills overview. What we really talked about was the real world challenges you're having in your organization, in your territory, for you as a salesperson for Swisher, as a rainmaker. And what I want to do is make sure that we revisit the basic fundamentals of what we talked about. Number one, practice does not make perfect, it makes permanent. Deliberate practice improves because you're taking steps on a deliberate, regular basis, paying attention to the feedback and adjusting your approach. Remember the ultimate success formula, right? So what we're talking about here is building rapport. We're going to get into the rapport process because building rapport is not an accident. Building rapport just doesn't happen. Building rapport is also the foundation of your relationship with other people. Now I've got a rapport process that highlights some of the areas that rapport spells out. But let's talk about what rapport is and how it works. So the people who build rapport are not freaks of nature. There's something they have in common. And when you look at what people have in common, it is some basic skills they developed over time, and you can develop those skills too. And it's not where you're clearly a success. So it's in those areas that you're struggling. It's in those areas that you identified as a challenge that I want you to pay attention to, and you to start looking at how does your daily discipline impact that. If it doesn't, that's fine. Look for it to impact that, right? Because some of you took on personal disciplines that have what's called a ripple effect or a keystone effect. So health, awareness, spirituality, all the things that calm the mind. Because remember what I said early on, pay attention to the tension. The tension shows up in your body, shows up in your mind, and it eliminates you from having access to choices that'll make a difference in the moment. So condition those right behaviors so that in the moment, under times of stress, you can have that critical conversation. You can have that talk with somebody. You can move the needle from where you are to where you want to be. Remember, you're number one or number two in your category. You're the butter Bud Light walking in. So there may be something that you have to shift in your relationship. You also shift about how you relate to your offerings and what you have available for them as you create value. And if you look at the negotiating skills in the back, that negotiating genius, ultimately finding value in the conversation opens up opportunities for you to stand your ground, hold your position, but also demonstrate how you're creating value for the customer. That only happens in rapport. It only happens when you're in sync with the other customer. There's a lot of things that get in the way of rapport. The most important thing is your own personal state. So I heard a great line from Tony Robbins this week where he said, you don't have problems that you can solve because when you have a problem, it's your problem. You have questions you haven't asked yet. So remember to shift from a why does that customer do this, why do they do that, to how can I impact the situation? How can I find a workable solution? How can I deal with this situation in a more effective way? What are your choices that you haven't accessed yet so that you can have that interaction, that impact that you're looking to have each and every time you interact with a customer? So they have something in common. So let's talk about what rapport is, right? It's that relationship, that connection, that harmonious or sympathetic relationship when you are connected to the person. You can say what you need to say in the most appropriate way because you're in rapport. You can say almost anything to somebody when you're in rapport. So just remember that, right? So, and we have a simple 4-step formula. First, it starts with your self-awareness. Your ability to notice what you're doing in the interaction, what you're thinking in the interaction. What are you focused on? What are you relating to as real? So a level of self-awareness is going to be critical for you to establish rapport. The next thing, and that is, so the next thing, once you understand how your personality, how your thoughts, how your beliefs, your words, your context is impacting the situation, then you can take a step back and start looking at what you can control in yourself. Remember we talked about most of behavior is unconscious. So most of the things you do because you're used to doing them. You're in the habit of doing it. You don't even realize you're doing it. So that self-awareness leads to self-control, and that self-control is paying attention to the tension, how you're processing information and how it might be different from how your customers processing information, and that you might not be in sync yet, right? So there's adjustments you can make to put yourself in sync with that customer. The next thing is to know your customer, right? To pay attention to them. I'm moving myself around in this little equation so you can actually read what I'm talking about. So knowing your customer, now paying attention to their typical way of communicating, their desired benefits, their desired results. Knowing your customer allows you to see their behavior in a different way. Not just assuming it's one thing or another, but actually testing new behaviors on your part to see how it impacts the relationship and the conversation on their part back to you. And then, of course, the most important thing is to adapt, to shift, change, to move what you normally do, the way you normally do it, to a way that might be more effective. So it's not a goal of good or bad, right or wrong, but it's what's effective in the moment, in that moment alone, and how you can improve those things. So I want you to start paying attention to those things, because it's important that you do, because that's how you get what you want, by satisfying the needs of what they want as well. So again, I'm going to take you through the process of rapport, and I'm going to move myself down there. And what we're going to talk about over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to identify each one of these sections. Relationship. Who are you to them? Who are they to you? You know, what is your thought relationship to them? What is your status relationship to them? Are they a VP and you're a NAM? Are they, are they a director and you're a ZCAM? Is there some kind of shift that maybe you're thinking that it prevents you from connecting, creating value in each other's relationship, so that you get what you both want? Then there's your approach. How do you approach that customer? Your communication style, their communication style. There's so many other things about approach. Have you identified their places of profit? Have you prepared in a way that establishes your value? There's a lot more to it than that. That's more of the account management, looking at the analytics, presenting in a different way. We'll talk about how to do that later on. I think there's a definite need that we analyze your business model, your data analytics. How do you come to the fact that, knowing their customers, knowing how their customer gets value to, approaching them maybe from a different approach. Maybe you've tried, hey, we're number one, you should just do it, to maybe something else. I don't know what approach is not working. Only you know what you're doing, and to know what you can shift in your approach. We'll talk about that. The next 3 sections are about questions, the pain questions. What do they dislike about their current situation? What do they like about their current contracts, their current situation? What do they like with you? What do they like with others? What are the other people doing that they like? What do they don't like? But ultimately, how does that fit into the outcome that they're looking for? What are they looking for that you can customize and design your offerings to match that? And that's where you need to work with, Ted and Andrew and Jeff's team, to see if you're crafting the right promotions, the right contracts, those kind of things, right? Are you presenting those things? But do you know enough about what they want in order to present that? We're going to work on that week following. Then we're going to talk about relevance. When you present your solution, is it actually meeting their needs? Is it relevant? Is it real time? Is it important to them? Is it really important to them? Are you really distinguishing what's most important to them? You got to look at what's most important to you, but you also need to know what's important to them as well. And then along the way, are you testing? Are you finding out if they're ready to say yes? Are you nurturing that yes? Are you making sure? Because when it comes time to close, it shouldn't be a conversation to close. It should be a conversation for the details to execute that close. So we'll talk about all of those things over the next couple of weeks, but I want to remind you that you made a commitment to your triad. Have you put it in your calendar? Are you honoring that commitment? Make sure that stays important. The thing you need to talk about is, number one, have you kept your daily discipline, right? Have you reported in? Have you missed something? And if there is a broken agreement, you got to clean it up between you 3, right? What was missing? What was more important than keeping your word? Or was there something else you could explore? But try something, test something, look for some other approach, some other dynamic, so you can get those habits in the way you want them in, to become the person you want to be the most effective in your role as a job, as a father, as a brother, as a son. All of those things are important to kind of pay attention to what you're doing and the results you're receiving from that. So test, practice, pay attention to everything. Because everything that transpires will reveal something about you as a person, as a leader, and in relationship. And you are leaders. You are the rainmakers. You're the cream of the crop. You're at this top position because you belong. So are you taking advantage of that? Are you doing everything you can do? That's it for the reminder. This is Follow Up Friday. I'm Dominic. Thanks, and make it a great day.